Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now celebrating 17 years of broadcasting success, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience and those tuning in online worldwide through our friends at iHeartRadio. We're glad you all could be with us as well. We're excited to welcome David Meyers to our program today. David is not only the co-creator, but also the star of a web series I had a chance to watch on YouTube called Bloomywood. We'll talk to David not only about the series, what it was like for him to be able to see the response to the show so far, also what it says for all of us as we're having fun with it, about what extent we're able to go when it comes to pursuing our own goals and dreams. And, of course, if you guys have not watched the episodes yet, I will be letting you guys know how you can see it for yourself. David, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I'm really appreciative to get to chat with you.
Oh, the pleasure is definitely all mine. So this series is a lot of fun, and what I love about it, and we can kind of just jump into the conversation here, David, I think you kind of designed this for people out there who may have one, little time, or two, short attention spans, because the episodes are short, but they definitely are fun and engaging. What has it been like for you to be able to see the response to it already?
It's been pretty amazing. It's very rare that you get a response that was exactly what you're hoping for, and our response to Bloomywood has been exactly what I've been hoping for. I've had people who've created shows for NBC, who've worked at Paramount, watch the show and say, this is fantastic. We actually had someone at Paramount send it to one of the stars of The Office because she liked it so much, saying that, hey, would you be in the finale? So we're talking with her now, so I hope that's going to work out. So obviously when you create something, that's kind of your goal, that the people are going to respond that way. So it's been really nice. We really wanted to put something out there that was positive and funny because we're in such a dark time, so we really wanted to be able to hopefully uplift people a little. So to be hearing that people are really enjoying this has really meant the world.
And I want to talk about that, David, because I think that it is funny. I mean, it is definitely comedic. There's that side of it. But there also is a very serious element. I mentioned to you before we went on here that, I mean, as someone, who is a content creator myself or someone who's into the arts, I think they can truly be inspired by what Michael Bloomstein is able to do when it comes to believing in himself and going for his dreams. Is that also part of what you hope people watching this will take away from it, the importance of going the extra mile to be able to go for what you want?
I think that is probably the biggest thing, besides laughing, that we want people to take away. I used to work in politics, and my biggest project to date was a very, very heavy World War II drama that the actor Michael Shannon was supposed to star in New York before COVID, and we're developing that with him now as a TV series. And I talked with them, and they said, well, you're confusing me because you have this heavy, true story from World War II, and then you have this 2-minute comedy, this funny comedy. I don't understand what you do. And I said, well, the common thing that brings people together is that, trying to uplift people. The World War II story is just a very inspiring story about a group of German students who opposed Hitler, but the goal with Bloomywood is to inspire people because a lot of people pursuing their dreams in Hollywood can become, really jaded, and so we wanted to take a fun but also, loving look at someone who's just putting their heart out there and is just trying to move forward with positivity. And I think that's what people have responded to just as much as the humor.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So you mentioned a bit about your own personal journey to where you are today. I want to go a little bit more into that, David, because I did read a couple of interviews as I was prepping for this, and you talked about the variety of work you've been able to do, including, as you mentioned, in politics. Have you always, though, been a person who's kind of made a decision about what they want to do and go for it?
I have. So I saw a production of Peter Pan on Broadway when I was 5 years old, and afterwards I didn't want to leave. I told my mom I was going to stay in the scene until we saw the show again. So that kind of bug got planted in me early, and then my brother passed away when I was in high school. And the reason I mentioned that is because that showed me, just that things can end in an instant and that nothing's guaranteed. So, I always figured, there's only, you only got one chance at life, so why not just try and put yourself out there and try for your dreams? And if the show does anything besides making people laugh, I hope that it maybe would, convince someone who is on the fence and, staying in that comfortable life just to take a chance on themselves. And I just feel like you might as well try for what you want in life.
Right. Well, and I think that should be said, too, about Bloomywood, about, hey, not everyone's going to believe it. One of the funny things when I was first introduced to your project, I loved in the trailer where you were told, you mentioned about your mother didn't think you could do it. Again, talking about Michael's mother and you being told you have to separate yourself from your mother. I mean, but I think that's such a good point, though. Because I think so many times what happens is that we do allow people who don't believe in us to either get us to start doubting ourselves, or that we listen so much to that we miss out on our own voice. The question I'd like to ask you, though, I mean, I noticed in one conversation, David, you mentioned one of the things that you're most impressed about yourself about this is the quality, and that, again, has spoken for itself. Is that also what you want others to know about, hey, you can do these things, but you don't have to, to give up the quality, and also make sure that it is great content.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, someone recently asked me, pushed me really hard, hey, will you watch my thing? Will you watch my thing? And then I watched it, and I didn't love it. And, and she is, I think, been out there asking that of a lot of people. So I think, that's the other key is, when you ask for it, you only get one ask. So I think it's really important to keep that content very high. And I've made things before that have been like, oh, they're good, but this is something where I want to send it to this woman who works at Paramount, and I want to send it to this NBC showrunner, and I want to send it to these contacts that I've been lucky enough to develop over these 10 years. So I think that is the other thing, is that aside from it being short where it's digestible, it's got to be like you. I assume you wouldn't, have had me on where if you watched and you said, this is okay. So I think that is a really important thing, especially in today's market where anyone can make their own content. The only real way to break through is to have something that makes people stop and take notice if you don't have a big name attached to it.
Yeah. How important is it, again, going to Michael in his attitude of, I'm going to stay here until I get this done, or I think he even went so far as to say until he dies. Maybe
that's right.
People won't be that extreme.
Yeah.
But how much of that do you think is really necessary, though, David, when it comes to being so serious about what you want to do?
So a lot of people have asked me, is this really your life story? And I actually had someone who watched it and they said, I don't understand. I thought your name was David, and is the title of your movie really My Life a Saga? So I think it's, a version of my story, and I think all artists' stories taken to an extreme, is that there's so much rejection in this town. One of the best piece of advice I ever heard given about acting was by Mandy Patinkin. And this was someone who's probably one of the most successful actors in the United States. And he said, this business will just keep knocking you down, and the time to give up is when you can't stand back up anymore. So I don't know if you need to say that I'm going to stay until I get a movie deal or die, but I do think it's, I've had so much rejection, and I've just, in the time I've been doing this, I can't tell you how many people I've seen just drop away and decide that they just couldn't put up with that lifestyle anymore. And there have been so many times when I felt that way, and then something great happens, like my play gets to Michael Shannon and this great Broadway director, and all these things happen. But then again, there are periods where it's like, am I making a mistake doing this with my life? So I don't quite think you have to be willing to die for it, but I think it's just taken to an extreme that you just have to stick with it. And I guess at the end of the day, it boils down to if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to.
So true. I think that's a great thing. For those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome David Meyers to our program today. David is the co-creator and the star of the web series called Bloomywood. It's available on YouTube. We're going to be reminding you all of that. For those joining us through iHeartRadio, we're going to be actually posting a link with it. I mentioned, of course, that quote earlier from Michael's acting coach. That is one of the memes you guys created for social media. So I have to talk to you about social media before we let you go. David, did you know going in, I know the series is available for people to watch on YouTube, but did you know going in that the other sites like Instagram were going to be important to help spread the word about it?
We did, and that's kind of been probably the one negative or the most unfortunate aspect of this, is that we had this wonderful person who was going to help us on social media. We had this whole giant campaign planned out, and this project has had a lot of setbacks due to COVID, but her mother passed away from COVID, and she just had to withdraw. That was obviously the big, tragedy. And then just with everything else, it kind of, all fell on me, and I just have as much time to engage with social media as I wanted. Like, I've had people who, we just put out this 1-minute clip that was so good, but the episodes were only 2 minutes, so we couldn't even get this one in there. And people said, like, this is so great, this should go viral, and I agree. I think some of this stuff is, like, good enough, that it could go viral. And I just haven't had as much time to put it out there as I would like. So I've just been trying to be, gentle with myself, understand, that there's only so many hours in the day and do what I can, and then having, people like you willing to have us on to help share it has really meant the world in that regard. So I'm truly, truly grateful to be here for that reason.
Well, look, I appreciate you saying that, and we'll make sure one of the things we've started doing with our entertainment segments, David, is to include them on Instagram. So we'll make sure that we tag your page there, so people can easily find it there. And so the last thing I want to ask you about, and then we're going to remind our audience how they can stay connected with you and, of course, watch the series, is about the what's next. As you said, this has not been the year a lot of people had planned on because of everything we've been dealing with, including COVID, of course. I know that you have plans also. I read in another conversation that you definitely want to do a season 2. Did you find yourself, and you just said something really important too, I think, about being kind to yourself, because I think a lot of people have been beating themselves up this year about not being as active or productive or whatever, as they want to be, but also understanding that things happen, right, to us all. How do you balance it, I guess, would be the obvious question. You have this great series. How do you balance enjoying that, David, and then, of course, looking forward to what you want to do?
I think for me, at the end of the day, it's just every day trying to do as much as I can and then let it go and just be happy with my life in general, and then the project has been so well received. And I think that surprised us when we made Bloomywood. We thought, everyone's going to reject Michael and tell him he never has a chance, and they're going to be mean to him. And everyone was actually really nice to him. So we said, this changes the show. And I think people were, nice to him was because they were inspired by his positivity. So that's kind of my outlook in life. That's why I moved to Los Angeles, because being outside made me happy, and I just wanted to be around nature all the time. So a lot of times at the end of every day, I'll just check in for all the things I'm grateful for, and that no matter what, even if nothing would ever happen again, I've made this, thing that people have liked. And hey, if, when we chatted at the beginning before I came on the air and you said you loved it, that means the world to me. Obviously, I love like 1 million people to say that, but just for even one person to say that means so much. So just constantly reminding myself at the end of the day that that's enough. I'll do everything else I can to move it forward. But, it's personal interactions like that are just as meaningful as, something more major happening with it.
Well, I know there's going to be a lot more people telling you that as the word continues to get out. They're definitely going to enjoy it, David. It is really well done. It's funny, but I think also a great inspiration for those out there when it comes to pursuing your goals and dreams and not giving up along the way. Again, everyone, David Meyers has been our guest. He's a creator and the star of Bloomywood. It's available, of course, as we've been talking about here on YouTube. We'll make sure that we tag that for our audience joining us online. But, David, how can our audience also stay connected for the updates?
So our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Bloomywood the series, and it might just be easier. We also have a brief landing page where you can see our videos at Bloomywood.com, and BLOOMY Wood. So Hollywood, but Bloomywood, because Michael Bloomstein is going to turn Hollywood into Bloomywood. So Bloomywood.com or youtube.com/Bloomywood the series.
All right. Congratulations to you again, David. Really appreciate the time and looking forward to having you back on the program again.
Well, thank you so much, Cyrus. This is probably genuinely the nicest interview I've had about the show, so I've been so pleased to join you.
Yeah, the pleasure's definitely all mine, and I appreciate the kind words. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Let's make today amazing. Take care.